Thank you for joining Sports Development Series. We yours truly, Boma, Ekiyor. Our Sportdev series is sponsored by Arewa Baobab Fruit Powder, one of the most nutritious substances on the planet. Get your Baobab Fruit Powder from arewabaobab.com.
It's like riding a bike.
It's like riding a bike. Sportdev, we're live. My main man, Always Footie, Always Footie Podcast. Our resident football soccer expert is in the house. Mike, West Side, Okoro is in the building from the Bay Area.
I just want to say that I remain loyal. No matter what, all circumstances, you can count on me, unlike the Nigerian judiciary.
Let's not get into that. That was just, man, let's just say things haven't changed that much. You know, anyone that was holding out hope didn't really understand. Incumbents, nah. And I blame Good Luck Jonathan. I think he gave people a false sense of hope that things could be done a certain way and the right way. And anyways, let's get into the world of football. How have you been, man?
God has blessed me, so I can't complain too much. Gotten a little grayer.
I see.
But I guess Lord is blessing me every day and abundantly too. I can't complain.
Mm-hmm. The gray looks good on you, though. It's not like you don't look like an old man sporting gray. You look like a young man that's sporting gray. There's a difference. You know what I mean?
I'll take the compliment.
Yeah. No, there's a difference.
I thank my father and my mother for passing on decent enough genes.
Yeah. Yeah, but your dad was always clean shaven, though. I never saw him with a beard.
Nah, I never grew a beard.
Nah, but it's all good, man. Hey, so a lot has been going on in the world of sport, man. I think, how about that Super Eagles strike force? I mean, the list that you recently sent to me with the names of the players that got invited by Peseiro for Nigerian national soccer team. These guys, I mean, did you look at that strike force? First of all, they're definitely playing 4-3-3. There's no way you have that kind of talent on the bench and you keep a majority of them sitting down on the bench. What are your thoughts? Go ahead.
So I'll start with, yes, of course, I've seen the strike force. That one is there for all to see. In fact, the team can almost pick itself. But the biggest part of it is just like I did when I sent you the text message for the list, is to celebrate the fact that finally, Ahmed Musa is not on that squad. Because in fact, that's the whole reason why we haven't been able to see some of these guys, because a gentleman like Musa was taking up a spot that a guy like perhaps Boniface Victor or Gift Orban ordinarily occupy. So, if we talk about the spot, there's really not too much in terms of new faces except for those two guys. And of course, in the defensive line, Tonariga, I think if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, will be getting his first call up to the Super Eagles. So 3 new invitees, but it's pretty much of the same old. Maybe some will argue that what is Moses Simon still doing there? But Moses Simon is a trusted soldier, may not always deliver the goods. Same as Samuel Chukwueze, actually, he doesn't really deliver the goods when it comes to play for the Super Eagles. But the call-ups are right. But I want to talk about those guys because in reality, when you look at the list, our forward line has started the season with their hair on fire. We speak of Victor Boniface, who moved from Union Gilois in Belgium, where he won the Europa League top scorer last year, and moved into the Bundesliga, moved into a very good team being coached by Xabi Alonso, the former Liverpool, Real Madrid man and Spanish international. And Xabi Alonso has those boys playing some exceptional football in the first, just like last year when I identified Napoli as the team to watch. I'm identifying, what's the name of it? Bayern Leverkusen as that team to watch this year. They play some exciting brand of football, and that's the part. And I don't want to be big all over the place, but we'll talk. I want to focus on this. So Boniface is in a setup that is perfect for him. The team functions smoothly. They play to strengths. The wing backs, the wingers, they cross the ball in. They have a midfielder in Hoffman that is playing. If people don't know about him in Europe right now, believe me, before the end of the year, before the end of this season, because they are in Champions League, you would have learned about Hoffman, who they got from Borussia Mönchengladbach. Mönchengladbach are the rivals for Leverkusen. In fact, they played them in game 2 of the season, and it was a 5-1 walloping for Mönchengladbach by Leverkusen, which is a good result because Mönchengladbach played Bayern Munich this last week, and Bayern struggled to beat them 2-1, scoring a goal in just about the last minute to win the match. So, of course, these things don't work like that, but that's a way to kind of see the free-flowing football that Bayern Leverkusen are playing. In that game, Boniface scored twice, had another brace. No, but I think he scored once. I can't remember how many, but he scored 3 goals in 4 games. He's doing well. He's doing. Yeah. He started out the season really well. In fact, he's being looked at as being the rookie of the month for the month of September, and I think he should win that rather steadily and easily. Oh, the other guy they got too is your Arsenal man, Granit Xhaka. He's provided that solidity, that experience. In fact, it's amazing, man. Let me tell you something. The Premier League is the best league in the world. There's no doubt. When you get a guy like Granit Xhaka will come over, you just see the difference in class. A guy that got discarded by Arsenal. They didn't want to re-sign him. But you can just see his class showing through in the Bundesliga. It's just a different level. Anyway, that's Boniface. And we talk about Gift Orban. I think that pretty much was the guy that was the toast of last season. And in fact, in the last round of call-ups, people were really upset that he wasn't called up for a couple of reasons. One, the simple fact that he was shining for his club Ghent in Belgium, having transferred from I believe it was Scandinavian. I think it was Norway where he was playing at before. And from transferring, he scored almost 20 goals for Ghent into all competitions. So that was amazing how he was just scoring hat tricks left and right in the Belgian league and also in the Europa Conference League. But people saw the inclusion of Ahmed Musa in the last squad list as holding him back. And on top of the fact that he also has dual citizenship with both Nigeria and, wait for it, Togo.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so the Togolese even raised some noise like, we'll call this boy. If you guys don't want to call him, we might. But I think anyone with any kind of 2 eyes knew that Togo had no chance unless Nigeria fumbled the bag completely there. And that's what we seem like we're doing. But, I'm glad to see him there because he's a guy that, on top of the fact that he's a diminutive player, he can play with both feet. He's also good on set pieces, which is something that if you've been watching the Super Eagles, you haven't seen them score too many goals on set pieces. In fact, if I may be wrong, but I'm trying to think back. The last set piece goal that I seen a Nigerian team score, I'm talking about from a direct free kick. It's a long time. And from my memory, I'm thinking back to even African World Cup qualification from 2018 World Cup qualification. I don't remember the last time we scored directly from a set piece. Or even the friendly match where we scored against Argentina in Kelechi and Acho scored that goal. But other than that, usually our free kicks are the same routine: tap the ball and let's shoot as hard as possible. Either William Truce Ekong or somebody that is something that is just not intricate. In these things, you need technical players, technicalities to bend that ball around the wall, over the wall, and beat the goalkeeper at angles that he's not anticipating. Anyways. So those 2 guys. And then Torani got a central defender. That's, I would say, was one of our weakest spots in the Super Eagles. In fact, when I look at the list and see us inviting Omeruo and Truce Ekong, and I look and I say, I can't really tell you who's a better option. So that just says a lot about how bad we are in that position. Calvin Bassey, obviously, but he's having his struggles even in Fulham in England. Having struggled completely last year in Ajax.
What were injuries?
Form. At Ajax last year, he wasn't that. He really was a disappointment. He didn't fit into the brand of football they played over there in Holland. Possession base. He's not that type of player. He's not very great with the ball at his feet. He can run with the ball, make runs, get crosses in, but to the intricate passing from the back is just not what I believe is his strength. Yeah. He's still young. He can get better, but that's just what it is. Over there, Fulham got a red card in his last match. He's still adjusting to life in the Premier League. But he got a red card in his last match, so who knows what's going on there.
Well, thing is, out of that squad, who you pick as your front three? So let's break down the squad.
Right? And that's the other thing you were saying. You were mentioning that it has to be a 4-3-3. Actually, I think it probably won't be. And why do I say that? Because antecedents, precedents of Jose Pizarro, whom, by the way, we must mention has been re-signed as the head coach of Nigeria until the end of February.
So he took a pay cut. Took a pay cut.
Took a $20,000 a month pay cut.
Yeah.
Remain head coach of the Super Eagles. So what does that tell you? Well, the NFF test says they didn't have enough. They couldn't afford a salary anymore.
Yeah.
And, it was a protracted negotiation that it was in the final. Basically, the list, when the list got released on Sunday, which is a week before the match, was when we heard that he had been re-signed to a contract extension. That tells you it was a contentious process. But for me, any coach worth his onions is not taking a $20,000 a year, a month pay cut. It just tells me there's nobody trying to hire him. So these are the kind of guys that we hire. But it also I would hope that in that pay cut that he's taken is negotiated a way for him to have autonomy on the list. Because certainly I would say this list that he put out was probably the best list he's put out in a long time, where there was no forced Yum FC players joining the list and things like that. Like we saw last time when we had Boma in the list and about 4 or 5 local players that had no business being on that list, being in the list. But I digress. His preferred method of playing is 4-4-2. And in fact, when you look at the players he picked, that's what it's going to be. We really only have 2 wingers. The one guy we're missing this time around is Alex Iwobi. He's usually the guy, the fulcrum in the middle of the park there, that the only really true midfielder we have. So I see you getting very excited about the forward line. The problem is we don't have midfielders to really complement that forward line. So which is the point I was trying to make with Victor Boniface in Bayern Leverkusen, where he has set up a system that really complements his strength. The guy's a good player, man. The second goal he scored over the weekend, the midfielder put a through ball close enough to the 18, but his first touch was exquisite, and then he shaped his body so he could shoot in one motion and finished up. First goal was nominated as goal of the week this week. It was a run, took it all the way from half field, and just definitely dinked the goalkeeper. So that was beautiful. So he's certainly showing a repertoire. We can't play 4-3-3 unless if we're playing 4-3-3, then we're starting Simon and Chukwueze. This is just what it is. And then only one spearhead. It'll be Osimhen. And right now, if it's 4-3-3, it also will mean that Ekiyor is going to take the role of Iwobi. But if we play a 4-4-2, which is what's his name prefers, and we can do that against Sao Tome and Principe. All right, if we play a 4-4-2, then we can start 2 of the strikers. In fact, I believe what we'll see is probably Boniface and Osimhen start together. And on either wings, you'll have your wingers. The problem is with a 4-4-2 and inverted wingers, it is a problem. So we're kind of an oddly shaped team.
Who would the wingers be, though? Would you go with Ajala and Chukwueze?
It would still remain as Simon and Chukwueze, but then they're in the wrong wings in a 4-4-2. In a 4-4-2, you want your wingers to actually be crossing the ball in. Simon plays on the left, but he's right-footed. Chukwueze plays on the right. He's left-footed. I've never seen I think I've only seen him very rarely play on the left wing, and even then his crossing is abysmal. Yeah. Right? So I don't know. And then I guess we have to fit in Ekiyor in there somewhere. And
so who are the 4? So we've identified the top 2, the wingers, the 2 midfielders in the middle will be who and who?
So I mean, the team almost picks itself, right? So if you look at it, I don't see how Moses, unless we get sprung a surprise, and all of a sudden they put one of the new guys out on the wing. Like
Orban could probably play the wing.
Actually, I saw Boniface play a little bit on the left wing towards the end of that match against Leverkusen last week, but he still drifted to the middle. So ultimately, that's what it's going to be. Osimhen is going to be in the middle. We know that. Osimhen can play out wide, but that would be stupid to play him out wide. Yeah. That's just not what he – again, but the problem I have here is that this match is not going to tell us anything whatsoever. Zero. Absolutely nothing. There's only one thing we can achieve from this match. We're going to cap tie Orban, and we're going to cap tie Toraniga. That's it. Because what are we going to get from playing Sao Tome? We can close our eyes, play 9-1, and still beat them 6-0, right? In fact, I don't know but the problem is
is rhythm, just to get the guys to play together, I guess.
Well, if we're going to do that, it would have been better served having a friendly match complement this game. That's really what it was. That's what we should have done. That's what most serious footballing countries are doing. In Europe, almost every country has 2 games in this window. Right?
Yeah, you try to get in as much as you can. That way you get the best out of it, because you're not going to see these guys. And even if you do see them again, you might not see the same 11 because injuries happen in Europe and all that stuff. So
well, this is not something we should take lightly, because in November, the next time they reconvene, it's World Cup qualifying. And we know we missed the last World Cup. So now the new World Cup format, our group is a tough group. We have South Africa in that group, who are baying for blood. When they play us, they're starting to become like Ghana when they play. They get up for that game more than we get up for the game. So we can't afford any slip-ups early on in World Cup qualifying. Yeah, the other teams we play in the group are minnows. We'll say Zimbabwe and I think Botswana was one of those. But we have to remember, those teams will play South Africa. And if we slip up against, we should beat them. But South Africa will beat them too. We would imagine. So what we really have to make sure is that we take maximum points from South Africa here, and perhaps even maximum points when we play all those other guys everywhere. Like don't no draws on the road, none of that 0-0. We blame the synthetic pitch, none of that stuff. We have to go out there and beat them silly. If it means 3-0 victories, that's where we need to go, because I think our group is going to come down to goal difference. I really truly believe that.
Well, the challenge has always been for us is like looking at that team. I look at the defense and I'm concerned, right? Because of the lack of depth. And you just have to wonder, okay, we go into qualifiers and you're playing this string of games. Those guys are older. Truce Ekong, Omeruo, how could they hold up, playing? And that's where I'm really concerned. Because I don't see a lot of prospects that they could fit into those positions, and in Africa, it's a lot of pace when you play these teams and a lot of rigor, and the fields aren't great. So that's always been my concern. I mean, our strike force, regardless of who you pick, those guys are, if you play the right kind of midfielders with them, like you said, those guys are deadly.
But we don't have any midfielders. We're placing a square peg in a round hole, and Kelechi in our chart. He's the one now will be tasked to be creative against. Again, like I said, this game against Sao Tome is not going to tell us anything. Iheanacho can go out there and have 5 assists, but that doesn't tell me that he's fit for that role. And then the other thing too, you look at it like when we talk about midfielders, we don't have ball playing midfielders, man. Our midfielders are tacklers. It's not like they're the greatest either. Franco Onyeka, he's not starting. He's barely playing he plays, but he comes off the bench every game.
Brentford, right? Yeah.
Wilfred Ndidi, he's had a good start to the season. He's actually scored, I think, 1 or 2 goals, but definitely he's been on the score sheet. He's had a couple of man of the match moments so far in the early season in both the championship and the Carabao Cup. But those are Mickey Mouse competitions. Like those are the fact that I'm even talking about that is sad. We have other guys like Rafael Onyedika and Alhassan Yusuf, but I think only one of those 2 was invited. But then smaller leagues like in Norway and Belgium,
that's my point though. We don't outside of that strike force, you start to look at it and you're like, man, we might be playing games where we're going to outscore you, and that's how we win.
Well, how are you going to outscore a team if we play against like a solid North African team like a Tunisia, or I don't even want to say Morocco because they're ahead of us right now. Even a team that will starve us off the ball, right? And then the forwards are going to be isolated. Chukwueze doesn't track back, so he's like a waste on that side almost. He might do it every once in a while, but that's not his track record.
Or a team, to your point about lack of tracking back, or a team that will let us have the ball and wait for us to make a mistake.
Right. And we saw that a lot, even in our better days, even at the end of Gennett Raw's era where, and actually all of Pesera's era. Let's even forget getting it raw. That era is past. Benin is in our group too, by the way, in the World Cup group. So
they're fine.
South Africa, Zimbabwe, Benin. So that's a tough. That's not an easy group, man.
Yeah, if you play a team that's smart enough and says we're going to be disciplined on the back, let them have the ball, and we counter effectively, we're in trouble.
No, we're always in trouble with that. If you look at Pesera's era, we've only had, I think, one match where we've had a clean sheet. And you can guess what match that was.
What match was that?
The same team we're playing again when we beat them 10-0.
Sao Tome.
That doesn't count. That doesn't count. So every single match in the
listen, Quara All Stars beat Sao Tome, man. That's not even a game.
And every single game in the Pesera era, we've conceded goals, and the kind of goals we concede typically are, except when we play Portugal and those teams that were clearly better than us, but it's the kind of goals we concede in Africa are those counter goals, goals where we we lack concentration. Look at that game against Liberia that we just played. That game was abysmal. The way we gave up those goals, it was just,
we made Liberia look like a team. That's the thing that pisses me off. It's like you're watching these guys and you're making these guys look actually really good. But they're not. And the reason why I know they're not is because I've seen situations where those same teams have played a team like USA, right? Mm-hmm. Or just another team that may be good at set plays, a little disciplined in the back, good at countering. And those teams beat them like 4-0. Easy. And so you realize, like, okay, we are either highly undisciplined or we just lack the personnel to execute effectively. So we make mistakes that cost us and make these teams actually compete with us when they have no business. Look at Sierra Leone when they played us in Edo State. It was like 4-0, 4-4.
But then here's the truth, and I think the truth that everyone needs to just really realize: we're not very good. We're not a good team. We're not a good team. What is it that we have that you'll say makes us a good team? We have one maybe world-class player on the verge of world-class. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, Victor Osimhen. But he's at a position where he needs help. He can't do it by himself. We have Chukwueze, who has gone on to move to. We had a decent season last year in Spain. He's moved to AC Milan this year, but so far he's coming off the bench. So let's just be real with that. I mean, I think on some of it is circumstances. He signed late. The guy in front of him is having a blinder right now in Christian Pulisic. So, it is what it is. But he's coming off the bench. He's not playing that much. Moses Simon, he's had a somewhat so-so start. But Moses Simon, I think we've seen the best of Moses Simon already. I think at this point we can safely say we're not going to get any better than what we've seen from Moses Simon up to this point in his career in the Super Eagles. All right? Outside of, and when you think about it, if we play 4-3-3, then we're saying we're really replacing Osimhen with Boniface, or maybe
Awoni.
Awoni was not invited.
Did he invite him?
That was what I was going to say. There's too many. If I'm not mistaken, I don't believe he might have been invited. But again, my point being, Awoni, all right. Awoni is doing well in England, but I still don't even see him as somebody that he fluffed his lines when at the African Cup of Nations. So he has something to prove because he didn't look convincing in the African Cup of Nations at all.
But he gets a lot of game time, right? And because of that, he has a lot of minutes in a highly competitive league. I mean, I saw his game recently against Chelsea, and he was threatened the whole game. Didn't score, but he gave Thiago Silva a lot of problems.
Yeah, but I see those things are they flatter to deceive us because that's set up in Nottingham Forest. It's set up around Taiwo Awoniyi. In fact, it is. It's like Awoniyi is the point man of everything they do, counter attack. Look at the goal he scored. Is it against Man United?
Yeah,
that's the thing that surprised me about Taiwo. I think his pace, somehow he's picked up that physique. And
strong. He's strong as another. Yeah.
His touch is not the greatest, but anyway, whatever, man. The point being, you're not going to have too many of those guys on the field at the same time. So when you look at, apart from those guys, who else? Ndidi is a spent force, looks like it, although it looked like he's reviving himself. Onyeka, no one's afraid is shaking in their boots to hear Frank Onyeka's name. Olaina hasn't done much. He's not okay, whatever.
He gets a lot of playing time with Nottingham Forest as well.
Yeah, he plays. He's on. No, but he was playing. He was even playing last year in Italy. For whatever reason.
Let me ask you a question. Are those boys at Crystal Palace still holding out for English call-up?
Those guys
what the hell is wrong with those kids?
Derek Ekiyor has already played for England. He played in the summer.
Who did? Is it?
Yeah, he's gotten the call-up. He's gone. He's not going to ever play for Nigeria.
And then Olise
doesn't want to play for Nigeria. The guys that want to play for Nigeria will tell you they want to play. You know, and Alexi will be indicated he wanted to play for Nigeria from the start.
Ademola Lookman. That's another guy.
Right. He was always, and that's another guy. He's in there too. Yeah. He's another guy that's, in fact,
so I'm telling you, bro, it was stacked in that zone. Just
maybe but Lookman has fluffed his lines with the Super Eagles. African football is different, man.
Yeah, it takes adjusting. It takes adjusting though.
So Joe Aribo, Ademola Lookman, Akwaguma, he didn't get called up this time. Those three guys in particular have shown that they're just not ready for African football. It's just different. The pace of it, the ruggedness of it, is just they're not up to speed. And Joe Aribo is one that's really disappointing because he's certainly gotten his chances over and over and over and over, and he's just, in fact, it looks like he gets worse as he plays.
Is he getting playtime now? He's not getting a lot of playtime right now, right?
He's certainly not starting for Southampton. He's getting playtime. But Southampton sucks this. They just got beaten 5-0 in the championship.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
it's not a good look for us, man. Something I feel like we need an injection of some kind of injection of youth. We seem to have youthful players are coming through. There's another guy, Okoro Adams, that plays for Montpellier in France. He started the season really well. I think he scored 3 goals in 3 or 4 games.
Niger born or
yes. I think he played. He might have played on the 20 or on the 23. Okoro Adams. He was in one of them. No, one of them Scandinavian league. That's another thing. I'm noticing that our guys are taking this Scandinavian path, and then they'll enter the French league or the Belgian league. Or
that's the way to go, man. That's why we host that Danish football development program in Nigeria.
Yeah, and that's worked out in the last 2-3 years. I've seen quite a few Nigerian players.
That's the way to go, man.
Move.
Yeah, man.
There are some guys that are making moves, but again, if you look at the profile of the players, they're still the same type of players we have. Tackling midfielders, no central midfielder that's a creative. We don't have any creative midfielders. And forwards. Occasionally a couple of defenders here and there. But I don't know, man. I don't know.
No, it's concerning for sure. Saving grace is that Africa is not that strong. So you could get away with some victories that help build confidence. But the team we're looking at right now is not the same team. Remember when we qualified and we had Algeria and Cameroon in our group? And we beat Algeria 4-0. We destroyed Cameroon and we just qualified.
Yeah.
We haven't been able to put together that kind of team.
We've failed to replace 2 players. And those are the 2 linchpins of that squad. Mikel Obi and Victor Moses. Those 2 guys we failed to replace. We just haven't found anyone, which is odd because I know a lot of times people were down on Obi Mikel, but in that from 2016 Olympics down to when he played his last match for the Super Eagles, he turned his fortunes around. He was probably one of the best midfielders we've ever had in the Super Eagles uniform in that period, you know. And if you think about it, it backed it up with great performances. Victor Moses has not been replaced. We thought Chukwueze would replace him, but Chukwueze has not even come close to what Victor Moses, how influential he was on the Super Eagles. And then also, Balogun was in his top form, Leon Balogun. We also had Ndidi and what's his name, number 17, that got hurt in the World Cup against France. Onazi,
Ogeni. Yeah, he was a savage.
We had a double pivot of hard tackling, defensive midfielders that could release Mikel and release Victor Moses, and maybe somewhat Moses Simon could hang back a little more. But also we had an informed Igalo. So we had informed players at the time in that era. Right now, The
That was
foreign,
that was Keshi, right?
no, we're talking about Raw's era. You're
That was
talking
Raw.
about,
Okay, that was Raw.
so that was definitely getting a Raw for the 2018
Yeah,
World Cup. And
2018. Yeah.
so 18 World Cup, 19 AFCON, that was the peak. And we've been sliding down ever since then, not replacing guys, mismanagement, firing coaches when they shouldn't be fired, hiring the wrong ones. I don't know what's going on, man. The Super Eagles on a downward slide. Again, you're saying we can win in Africa, but there's teams that we run up against we know we're not going to beat right now. We're not beating Morocco. Definitely we're not beating Senegal. Tunisia already showed us that they didn't even have to apply too much pressure to beat us in AFCON. You know what I mean? Like if Ghana, we can't beat Ghana. We cannot beat them. Right now I think Cameroon will feel like they're better than us. They have us. Zambo Anguissa in that middle of the park right there is not playing.
That's my boy, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So and their goalkeeper and their defense is solid in terms of African defense.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I would say we're probably about 5 or 6, maybe more closer to 6 in Africa. So that's not a good look for AFCON, man. Unless we catch fire somehow.
No, and and we haven't heard of anything. Like you don't look at the Nigerian squad, Super Eagles, right, and say, okay, here's the conveyor belt. Here's the plan to constantly bring in new guys, whether it's from under 20, whether it's from the National League, top players. There isn't a plan. Like this Sao Tome game, all due respect, you shouldn't have all these guys coming in. This is the game where you. I know some people are like, nah, let's get.
Because World Cup qualifying is coming up. We need to have our guys training together and blending, man. We can't just bring guys in November and say, okay, let's play.
But to your point, right? We're playing one game.
Yeah, but we're also
and then that's it. We're not playing any other game.
But we're also practicing together, so that matters too. Like bringing the guys together to practice, and that get together, learn set piece formations and all that little determine, whatever it is the coach is doing, the ideology. At least I disagree, and we don't have the luxury of, we're not that great that we can say, oh, we'll just beat these guys. Senegal did that this time, but they have that luxury. They've been playing quality friendly matches. They have.
But that's the point.
Look at the friendly matches they played at the end of June. They played Brazil.
Yeah, but that's the point though, right? The point is that we don't have a plan to have a system where, look, Truce Ekong and those guys, Omero, for God's sakes, the same Omero that couldn't get the ball off Messi.
Well, don't use Messi.
Okay. I'm just saying though, like when you,
there's worse against Namibia, whatever other country.
And I don't want to mock him because he's had Swatini. He's had his day. He was signed by Chelsea. He was loaned out. He's not the worst player you could have, but when you look at it from the standpoint of who else do we have, it becomes that's my point though. And the NFF, you look at them and like, what the hell are you guys doing?
We look like we have 2 future Super Eagles central defenders playing there, but that's on the 20 World Cup.
Yeah, but you slowly find ways, like you said, right? The friendly matches, you bring those guys in. You let them play. Let them get the butterflies off their system.
Yeah, but they're not playing anywhere. The biggest of the 2 just signed for Brentford's B team. Well, that guy we can't call him up to come play in the Super Eagles. I'd rather we call one of the local players from Young.
Let me ask you this though. Brentford's B team. A lot of players in Brentford's B team will end up playing in MLS. True or false?
Perhaps, I don't know.
Okay, so when you look at it from that standpoint, you realize like, okay, he may not be there now. But in terms of, I'll give you an example. When we went to play Costa Rica? We played Mexico though. Our B team got trashed. Played Costa Rica, I think, got destroyed. What was the purpose of all that?
Know. You really asking me that? You and I both know the purpose of all that now.
That's my point though. It's like
only one of those players from that whole, only one of those guys actually even went out and signed. And guess where he signed? Esperance of Tunis, and then they canceled his contract. And then he signed for some either Egyptian or Libyan club, and now he's basically nowhere to be. I'm gonna say nowhere. He's playing in North Africa. Couldn't even make it across the channel to go to Europe. So
I tell you what, right? I was watching.
Voila, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was watching the Chelsea game this weekend, and I was watching Nicholas Jackson. First of all, what kind of Senegalese name is that? There's some mago in that whole system with that. No passport mago. But I was watching Nicholas Jackson. I was like, Senegal doesn't even have the population of Lagos, right? And I'm thinking to myself, how in the hell? All due respect to them, they have like 4 or 5 solid academies. If you look at that Senegalese team, all those guys play. I'm not talking about for really good clubs. And you look at it and you ask yourself, something's wrong with us and our system.
So sorry to interrupt you, bro, but the truth of the matter is that if you look at where most of those guys are born, they're born in France. So that's just the reality of it.
Some of them, though.
Most of them born in France. Okay, I just had a conversation with a Senegalese just last week. Some guys ran into some Senegalese guy, and of course, I happened to be wearing Super Eagles jersey, and he came at me and said, "Oh, I couldn't quite tell. I saw green. I didn't know if it was Cameroon." I was like, "Look, my brother.
No disrespect.
There's only one green in Africa.
Come on now.
Let's not even go there. So we wear green to us. Like, you might be champions now, but nobody associates green. Never with the Senegal's jersey. Because after trading bars back and forth, with sparring a little bit, then I had to compliment him and say, you guys are doing something right, because you guys are winning everywhere. All your across the board on the 17, on the 20, on the 23, and Chan. They've swept everything. They're the champions of every single part. Well, maybe not on the 23, because I think Morocco won that.
But they won Chan, right?
Yeah, they won Chan.
So it's not just the foreign-born guys.
Well, yeah, that part too. But in the national team, it was like, oh yeah, the other thing that helps us is we have most of our guys are born overseas.
In France?
Yeah. And when you're born in France, there's an advantage there, because clearly the French are doing something right. If you look at their own national team, and we talked about this in one of the previous podcasts. The French league is a league where young players get to play. Of all the top 5 leagues, the French league is the one player where the young and they can express themselves.
Yeah,
so you got a guy who's 23. He's 23. He's played already. He's played almost 100 matches already in the French league, because they bring them in at 17, 18, 19. They play them. Those are the starters, especially defenders, which is kind of rare. You won't see that in England too much, where the defenders are kids, because there's grown men that play in England in defense. And they allow you to make mistakes but develop. So anyway, in any case, that's the and I mentioned this, like, that's an advantage you guys have. In fact, not just Senegal. Mali has that advantage. Senegal, obviously, they're doing something right in the development standpoint. You're right about that. There's no taking away from them. But if you look at the Francophone countries, they have that advantage that most of their players are either being born or migrate to France, where it's a better academy system for kids. While we're going to England. England doesn't develop youth as well, at least not from the technical standpoint. I almost would have wished we were colonized by Spain, because at least our footballers would be going and getting. That suits our style more. When our players go to England, we lose our creativity, because England's a direct game. It's direct play, speed, pace, power.
Pace,
right. And our game has speed and pace in it, but our game has always had creativity, but that's been like just wiped out of our football. Our guys, the profile of our players, the touch of our players is wanting. And it just tells you that I don't know what the academies are doing in Nigeria, but they're not developing solid fundamental players. The passes are not intricate. It's just something. Shooting is abysmal. Defending awareness is just not there.
Let me ask you this: when was the last time you watched Nigerian Premier League?
Which one? So I want to watch, but do you know that
you should go watch a game? And the reason why I say that is because
it's police football. It's kick and follow. That's what they do in Nigerian football league. That's my point. But here's the problem we have too. The league was supposed to kick off on August 26th. They postponed it to September 9th, which is this weekend. And then just yesterday, they came up and said, Super Eagles match. The officials will be in Uyo, be Harvard, they have make this meeting. Some just cockamamie excuse. Now they postponed the start of the league again, but they don't even have a date when it'll start.
Exactly. That is. I think we just answered the question you asked, and the question I asked earlier, as in, One, because you don't have that structure fully developed and optimized, you don't have the depth that you need. Our Chan team is terrible, right? And then because of that, we don't have players who are getting the necessary minutes on the field as professionals going abroad. Look at Gift Orban, Benway, Kid, Academy. Look at the guy from Leverkusen you talked about. Yeah, young kid, Academy. Osimhen, Academy. Chukwueze, Academy. There's a reason you're not seeing guys who are playing pro, highest level, going and having this success. It's because once they get to that level, they get destroyed. Their technical ability, the kind of work they're putting in, the kind of training they're getting just gets to crap, goes to shit. So they don't end up being that caliber of player that could go abroad. And that's the opposite of what should happen. What should happen is you become a professional with your local leagues, you get higher level of training, better competition, your level goes up, and then because of that, you end up getting the best clubs wanting to sign you because you could play for your national team. But that's not what you see, man. And that's why we don't have the depth. Look, you look at South Africa, right? So, boom, you could play for Orlando Pirates or Kaiser Chiefs and not be in Europe. And guess what? You have a bunch of players that compete daily at a good league, and then they'll play in Nigeria and be like, okay, yeah, we could put this guy in. He'll compete, and he'll do his thing. And that's what they do, and that's the same thing.
I would say just going over that South African league, South African players, they need to get out of South Africa. That's the problem. That's why they're not qualifying for World Cups. They still get bullied a little bit by West African countries because we have more exposure than them. And the reason why South African players don't leave is because they get paid handsomely in South Africa.
They get paid good money.
Yeah, they stay at home, and the stadiums, at least they have good stadiums, good fields. In Nigeria, that's not really the case. The good stadiums, good fields. Yeah, well, things are bad over there, man.
That is the fundamental issue. I swear to you, if anything, someone like Pissarro, I know he doesn't have leverage because he just took a pay cut to get his job back, but he has no leverage. But he should really. You look at stuff like that. If it was someone like Westerhoff, he could have said to them, "Hey, okay, look at when Westerhoff was there. Finidi George was playing for Shakhtar Port Harcourt.
Come on, that's a different time, man. It's unfair now to even start bringing Westerhoff into the equation at this point, bro. I know where you're going with this, but I think at this point, that's like we're beating the dead horse. That era is not coming back, man.
Listen, I talk to a lot of guys, agents, even coaches. Even coaches in Nigeria will tell you find a young, talented guy is in an academy and has opportunities to go abroad. They'll be like, man, don't send him to Nigerian Premier League. They'll destroy the boys' legs. And you're like, what do you mean? They're like, no, don't do it.
Defenders or players, the fields themselves would destroy them.
Correct. Because typically what should happen is, okay, like in Brazil, what happens is if a player comes out of the academy, Real Madrid shows up. All right, we're going to give you 20 mil for this player. Flamengo, whomever, or will say, nah, we're not selling him. That money's too low. He'll go play for their professional team, have maybe one fantastic season, then Real will come back and increase that money 3 times, and then they sell him.
Right, and then the other thing too, and this is something I was actually going to bring up earlier, and I lost my train of thought slightly, is that, and in fact, what you just said just augmented that. So it's not even just the Brazilian league alone that allows these Brazilian players, a lot of these really Brazilian players, get noticed. Is how they also perform in the continental tournaments. So these Brazilian clubs are always the best clubs in the South American Champions League or whatever the competition they call it over there, Copa
Libertadores.
Copa Libertadores. There we go. And there's a couple in Copa Sudamericana. Yeah, so those two right there, you see a lot of the Brazilian clubs, and that's where like these boys shine. Our teams, local teams, get knocked out in the qualifying rounds. Like both teams, Enyimba and Rivers United, lost in the qualifying round for the Champions League. This a couple of weeks ago, you know. So one of them, I think, Rivers United lost to a Ghanaian team on penalties. and Ainba, they lost 4-3 to some Libyan squad, if I'm not mistaken, on the road. 4-3, and it was schoolboy defending and cost them, and sometimes bad refereeing too happens in North Africa, but that's neither here nor there. And then they 0-0 stalemate at home. So when you don't showcase your talent across the continent either, no one's coming for you, you know.
The league is to be revamped, bro. Look, you don't understand that, and there are a lot of good players. Like I tell you what, people like Gift Orban wouldn't have gotten signed by a Nigerian professional club. You know why? Because there are coaches within that establishment that tell players, okay, you know, you're going to give me money to get on this team. Facts. So guys come in, pay, they get on teams. That's the reality, man. And if you don't pay, you don't get on teams. So you have a lot of guys who are really good, young, fantastic players who never see the light of day of a professional club at home. They end up playing for some makeshift academy somewhere, and you never hear about them. That's what would have happened to like the likes of Orban, even Osimhen. Osimhen was playing for an academy.
Yeah,
he wasn't playing pro. If not for U17, forget it.
Yeah, another thing that really hurt is that we didn't even qualify for the World Cup this period. So, you know, those guys that normally would be scouted, you know, Nigerian teams would definitely be scouted and picked up and maybe sent to some of these smaller leagues in Europe. We missed that window. And so, anyways, look, of course, I'm actually so the other thing is
wait, was it U17 or U20? I think it was U20.
On the 20 we qualified. We actually made it to the quarterfinals.
Was it on the 20 we went, or was it on the 17 that we got?
On the 20 we went and qualified for the quarterfinals.
That was okay. U17 was Nduka Agbade's team, right?
Yeah, they lost in the
they didn't qualify. Yeah.
Won by Senegal.
But that U20 team was good though.
They weren't good.
You don't think so?
They were just a bunch of hard workers. They had no skill whatsoever, and the forwards had no ball sense. Yeah, it was abysmal. It was like I give them credit for the matches. The Italy game was they played perfect instructions and a tactical game, and took Italy by surprise. Beat them 2-0.
Who did we lose to again?
We lost to Brazil.
Oh, okay.
Lost to Korea. That's who knocked us out. And the Koreans they knew. In fact, the Koreans, they watched our game. And
it was 1-0. The Korean game was 1-0, right? I think I saw
exactly what you're supposed to do. They allowed us to do all the running.
Let them have the ball.
Yeah, let them. And it's surprising because against Argentina, we didn't have the ball. Against Italy, we didn't have the ball. So that system, like I think if you remember, I was letting you guys know, hey, we out Italy'd Italy when we played them. We let the times have the ball and we just hit them on the counter. Bam! Yeah. Took them by surprise. Against Brazil, we tried to go toe-to-toe with Brazil, and Brazil showed us there's levels. But we had already qualified, so it was almost like, let's just see where we stand, and we got exposed. That we're just not really decent, but in the forwards have no ball sense whatsoever. They don't understand when to pass, when to dribble. It's just a bit. It's like that's the thing. It's like any Nigerian team, even if it's a local street team, you go watch, you just walk out, you stand on your veranda and just watching the guys on the street. You see ball sense in the players, at least from back when we were younger. I don't know what's going on these days, man.
Bad coaching, man. I swear to you.
We weren't being coached and we had ball sense. You know what I'm saying? We're just playing on the street. We knew we were overlap, pass. You get the ball, 1-2. It's easy. Look on the 17, one of the games. It was on 20. We had a guy that as soon as the ball touches feet, it was on the 17. As soon as the ball touches feet, it don't matter where it is, half center circle, or even he's shooting automatically from there. Every time. So it means no one's pulling aside saying, "Oma, this isn't what you're supposed to. You should at least." Release the get closer to shoot if you want to. You have a strong leg. We see that, but come on.
Yeah.
You can't be shooting from the top of the center circle every time. If you do it once to try to catch a goalkeeper by surprise, I get it. But if that's your only game, it's not up to par. But anyways, just things like that, bro.
Yeah, man. I mean, and that's the problem. So back to the point, in terms of midfield and defense, Super Eagles lack of depth. Unless one of these young kids gets scouted, goes abroad, makes a name, then it becomes a household name on the team. Outside of that, we don't have a plan. And the federation, this new president, I don't know. I've never heard anything about him. Not even a news clip. No, no bad news. Nothing. Just
he's been talking. So lately, what he's been doing is just been assuring real support. Support that, lamenting the knockout of the two Nigerian teams from the CAF Champions League.
Jesus, man.
Nothing. You're right. There's nothing concrete going on.
Something like, dude, announce something.
Funny you bring him up because I was going to even mention that. I remember when we were talking about right before they got elected.
Yeah.
And we were just sitting here like, what has this guy got to offer? And right now, nothing. In fact, there's only negative news that's come out in terms of the Super Falcons bonus row. It took FIFA taking the unprecedented step of saying, we're not even going to hand the money to the federation. We'll try to pay these girls directly ourselves.
That was embarrassing.
And then after that, then NFF, what their recourse was to say, then we will not pay you guys the match bonuses since FIFA is going to pay you guys participation. It's just the row with the coach. The way the female coach, well, and honestly, for me, Waldron surprised me. I didn't expect much from the Falcons either because of but
they showed up though. They performed pretty well. Yeah, they did, and that was a hell of a World Cup, man. The Women's World Cup.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Especially once the knockout rounds came around. I think in the first couple of rounds, it wasn't as great quality-wise. There was quite a few teams that maybe were a little overwhelmed. But as the competition got towards that, from that second round on, man,
yeah,
it was good. The quality was good. Spain. The three teams that stood out to me. Number one was Japan in the group stages. Japan stood out to me. They ran into a buzzsaw. They think they just ran out of steam a little bit against Sweden, and that's what happens in knockout competitions. You're not always going to be at your best, right? And the problem with Sweden and Japan is that the one thing that is Japan's weakness is the physique, and a team like Sweden,
physical. Them girls are female Vikings, man.
And so that just kind of was their undoing ultimately.
Yeah.
Spain stood out too from immediate. In fact, I don't know if you look at my social media, the very first post I made that wasn't a Nigerian Super Falcons post was about the Spanish team after their first match. I think it was against Zambia, the way they put 7 Kondo on Zambia. But Spain got beat up by Japan 4-0. So that was like a surprise. And in fact, that was one of the most highly tactical games because the Japanese themselves just said, okay, Spain, keep the ball. We don't want it. Like literally, we don't want it. And just lightning quick counterattacks just opened up the Spaniards, man. The Spaniards were shocked. They didn't understand what happened. So those two teams were standouts. And then England, I want to get not them. I think maybe honestly, those are the only two teams that really the standard of female football has improved. Oh, Colombia. At least I like the star player, the 19-year-old girl. I think Caicedo is her name. Not Caicedo. I forget her name now. But anyway, she's a young one. She played in both the Under-17 World Cup last year and Under-20 World Cup. And so earlier this year, and then played in the female World Cup. So she's played in all the World Cups within the span of a year. And she's a star. 17 years old. Or is it 19 now? Whatever she is now.
Wow. You do, and the thing is, the parity has gone up in women's football, because back in the day, it was just USA, Canada, Australia, those places that had some semblance of women's football, they would just dominate, and it was just by default USA would just always win, right? But now you see competition. Like most people wouldn't have given us a chance to qualify from that group. Like the Super Falcons. And
absolutely.
They did.
Now the girls tried. They really tried, but there's a couple of things missing from their game. Creativity, maybe lacking a bit. They still kind of struggle to complete passes, string passes together, build up. So the thing is, they're built to sort of withstand pressure. But when they have to play on the front foot, they're not quite, and especially on the world stage, they're not quite as good. And Assista Oshwala, I think she just doesn't really produce for the Super Falcons as well as she does for Barcelona. Of course, the teammates she has at Barcelona are on a whole world-class level. Most of them have just won the World Cup for Spain. So they feel all she has to do is just be the end product. And for Nigeria, she's just not getting the right balls and passes. But I mean, again, the women, they had a chance to beat it. I think they lost an opportunity. They really should have beaten England. They were the better team for all.
Yeah, man.
They played. But it is what it is, bro.
My man.
Yes, sir.
It's good seeing you, man. Looking younger every day.
And it's like you're trying to ask me for money or something.
Bro, not a problem. We're gonna do this again, man. Do this again next week. Have you come back?
Definitely.
Maybe the week after. I still gotta come to the Bay Area though. I keep telling you that, man, but I definitely need to make a trip.
We're here. It's
Cali.
Anywhere.
I heard people are moving out of California. Is that true?
People are moving into California, man.
So it's the opposite.
I mean, people might be moving out, but I sure as heck look like there's more people on the road every time I get out.
You need Tinubu to calm down and remove subsidy so people get off the road.
Let's leave that matter alone.
Oh, nice job, man. My man, thanks for coming on, man.
Yes, sir. Till the next one.
Peace.